Here is part 1, written in simple, natural English, around 1,700 words as requested. No headings included. Lena never imagined that a normal afternoon at the community school would turn into something she would remember for the rest of her life. She had gone there to help with small tasks, like she always did. She cleaned the art room, organized supplies, and sometimes helped the teachers carry boxes when they were short on hands. She was quiet, gentle, and always respectful. Most people at the school barely noticed her, except when they needed something. She didn't mind. She liked staying in the background, but that day was different. The school was hosting its annual event where students showcased their talents. Parents were invited, and the teachers were excited, especially because the event allowed them to show off the work they had done through the year. The hall was decorated with colorful lights, and there was a stage with a long red curtain. In the corner, standing proudly as if it were a king, was a black grand piano. Students walked in and out of the hall as they prepared for their performances. Lena had finished arranging the chairs and was now wiping dust off the tables. She didn't expect anyone to bother her, but suddenly she heard loud laughs behind her. She turned to see a group of teachers standing together. They weren't bad people, but they often joked in ways that weren't very kind. They liked stories that made others laugh, even when the laughs came at someone's expense. One of the teachers spotted Lena and smiled in a way that made her uneasy. "Hey, Lena," she called out. "We need a little entertainment before the real show starts." The others laughed. Lena paused, unsure. "Entertainment?" "Yes," another teacher said. "Why don't you go on stage and play the piano for everyone?" The way she said it didn't sound like a real invitation. It sounded more like a dare, a joke, something they wanted to use to make people laugh before the serious performances began. Lena felt her heart tighten. She looked at the grand piano and then back at the teachers. "I don't know," she said softly. "Oh, come on," one of them hushed. "It's just for fun. Don't be shy. Show us what you've got." More teachers joined in, clapping and encouraging her loudly, but the tone wasn't warm. It was teasing. They expected her to sit at the piano, press a few wrong notes, and make the crowd giggle. Some students nearby had already turned to watch, sensing something was happening. Lena didn't want to be part of their joke, but she also didn't want to cause a scene. She breathed slowly and tried to think. She could have refused more strongly, but something inside her told her not to run away. Maybe it was the old part of her that still remembered the piano keys she once loved. Or maybe it was the way the teacher smirked, as if they had already decided the ending of the story. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She simply walked toward the stage. The teachers laughed louder, sure they had succeeded. Some students whispered to each other. Parents seated in the front rows looked confused, wondering why someone from staff was being called to perform. Lena climbed the small steps to the stage. The lights were bright, and she had to blink a few times to adjust. The hall felt bigger from up here. The piano looked both familiar and distant. She had not touched a real piano in years. As she walked across the stage, she heard someone whisper loudly, "This will be funny." Another whispered, "She probably can't even find the right key." The piano teacher, who had been reviewing his notes for the student performances, lifted his head. He was known for being strict. People said he rarely smiled. He stared at Lena with raised brows, clearly puzzled as to why she was heading toward his beloved instrument. Lena reached the piano bench. Her hands were slightly cold, but her face was calm. She sat down slowly, treating the seat like something sacred. For a moment, she simply rested her fingers on her lap. The hall quieted down a little, though some small laughs still echoed in corners of the room. Lena looked at her reflection on the polished surface of the piano. She looked older than the girl she remembered, the girl who once spent hours practicing music until her mother called her for dinner. Her mother. That single thought opened a door inside her. Memories came rushing back. Her mother teaching her scales, her small fingers pressing each key with care, the warm afternoons filled with melodies. She remembered how much she loved creating music, how it felt like speaking in a language she understood better than words. But life had changed quickly. Her mother fell sick, and Lina had to take work at a very young age. Her dream of studying music faded, and she put her heart aside to survive. But now, here she was, sitting in front of a piano again. One of the teachers called out, "Any day now, Lina." A few people chuckled. Lina slowly lifted her hands and placed them on the keys. Her fingers trembled lightly, but they rested naturally, as if they had been waiting for this moment. She didn't know what she was going to play. She didn't think she had the courage to play something complex. But her heart chose for her. She took a deep breath. The hall fell silent. The first note she played was soft, so soft that people leaned forward to hear better. It floated through the air like a small feather. Then she played a second note and a third, forming a gentle melody. The crowd's laughter instantly stopped. The piano teacher straightened in his seat. His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in complete surprise. Lina's fingers moved slowly at first, as if warming up after years of sleep. But soon they gained strength. Her shoulders relaxed, and she closed her eyes for a moment. She wasn't in the school hall anymore. She was back in her childhood home, sitting next to her mother, playing because it made her heart full. The melody grew, becoming richer and deeper. The hall was now so quiet that the sound of each note felt like a drop of water falling into a silent pond. Parents stared wide-eyed. Some students stood up from their seats, unable to believe what they were hearing. The teachers who had pushed her to perform exchanged shocked looks. They had expected a joke, a clumsy tune, something silly. But this was music. Real music. Lina didn't look at anyone. She didn't think about who was watching, or who had laughed. She only thought about the keys under her fingers, and the memories they touched. The piano teacher walked a few steps closer without even realizing it. His face softened, and he whispered something to himself, like a question he couldn't answer. Lina reached the middle of the melody, where the notes began to dance faster. Her hands moved with more confidence now. The music rose and fell like a story being told, one filled with joy, sadness, and years of silence. She had forgotten what it felt like to play like this. She had forgotten how strong music made her feel. The hall stayed still. No one made a sound. No one even breathed loudly. When Lina finally played the last note, she let her hands rest on the keys for a few more seconds. The sound lingered in the air, soft and warm. She slowly lifted her fingers and placed them on her lap again. The hall remained silent for one long, heavy moment. It felt like everyone was trying to understand what had just happened. Then the applause began. It started with a single pair of hands, then more, and then the entire hall erupted in loud claps, cheers, and shouts of amazement. People stood up from their seats. Some parents even had tears in their eyes. Lina looked down, shy and unsure. She had not played for applause. She had not played to prove anything. She had simply played because something deep inside her had finally spoken again. The teachers who had mocked her stood frozen. One of them covered her mouth with her hand, embarrassed. Another couldn't look up, feeling guilty for what she had expected. But the piano teacher, he stepped forward, his face full of disbelief. He stared at Lina for a long moment, as if trying to understand how someone like her had walked into their hall unnoticed and then played like that. And though he hadn't said a word yet, everyone could see one thing clearly. He was shocked. And Lina, quietly standing from the bench, finally allowed herself a small, soft smile. A smile that said she remembered something she had forgotten for too long. Her talent, her love, her voice, and this was only the beginning. Lena stepped off the stage slowly, almost as if she wasn't sure if her legs would carry her. The applause was still fading in the background, echoing against the walls of the hall like a warm breeze that refused to disappear. She didn't know where to look. Some people were staring at her with wide smiles. Others whispered excitedly to the person sitting next to them. A few parents even stood to get a better look at her as she walked away from the piano. She kept her head down. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. So many eyes watching her made her feel exposed, almost like she had revealed a part of herself she had kept hidden for years. She tried to step aside quietly, hoping she could blend back into the background again, but the hall wasn't ready to let her fade. Before she could take another step, she heard someone clear their throat. It was a gentle sound, soft but firm enough to stop her. She raised her eyes slowly and saw the piano teacher standing a few feet away. He wasn't smiling, but his face had changed completely from how it looked earlier. The sharp lines of strictness had softened. He stared at her like he was trying to read a book he didn't know existed. "Where did you learn to play like that?" he asked quietly. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't mocking. It was full of genuine curiosity. Lena opened her mouth, but no words came out. She wasn't sure how to answer. She hadn't spoken about her past in so long that the words felt dusty and unused. "I used to play when I was young," she whispered. The teacher took a small step closer. "Used to? That wasn't used to. That was experience. That was training. Who taught you?" Lena's fingers curled at her sides. "My mother taught me. She played. I learned from her." The teacher blinked slowly. He looked like someone had opened a door he didn't know was there. "Your mother was a pianist?" "She loved music," Lena said. "She taught me everything she knew." Before the teacher could ask more questions, someone called her name, one of the staff members who had been watching from the back. She turned toward the voice, grateful for the interruption. The staff member waved her over urgently. "Come, come," the woman said with excitement. "You need to come here for a moment." Lena walked toward her, though she still felt dozens of eyes following her. The staff member led her toward a group of parents who were all standing together, whispering like they had discovered a secret. One of the parents, a tall man with kind eyes, stepped forward. "That was beautiful," he said. "I've been to many shows here, but I've never heard the piano sound like that." Another parent nodded eagerly. "Yes, yes. You must perform more often. Do you give lessons? My daughter would absolutely love someone like you to guide her." Lena's cheeks warmed. "I'm not a teacher," she said softly. "You could be," someone else said. A group of students approached next. They weren't teasing or laughing like earlier. They looked amazed. One of them spoke shyly. "Miss, how did you move your hands so fast? I can't even play one page without getting confused." Lena smiled gently. "You will learn. It just takes time and practice." The student nodded, but his eyes were still full of awe, like he had seen something magical. From the corner, the teasing teachers stood quietly. Their faces no longer had smirks. One of them looked guilty, her arms crossed tightly as if trying to hide her discomfort. Another kept her head down, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Lena noticed them, but she didn't say anything. She wasn't someone who held grudges. She simply stepped aside, wishing she could disappear for a little while. As she walked out of the hall for a breath of fresh air, she felt the cool breeze brush against her face. The sky was soft blue, and the evening light cast long shadows across the ground. It felt peaceful, much quieter than the buzzing voices inside. She stood next to a bench outside the entrance and took a slow breath. Her hands still trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the release of emotions she had kept locked away for too long. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know what people expected from her now. But she did know one thing. Playing again had awakened something inside her. Something she thought she had buried forever. A moment later, the piano teacher stepped outside. His footsteps were slow and thoughtful. He stood a short distance away, giving her space but making it clear he wanted to talk. "I didn't know," he said quietly. Lina looked at him. "Know what?" "That someone like you was here," he replied. "Someone with that much talent." Lina lowered her gaze. "It's nothing special. I just learned when I was small." The teacher shook his head. "What you played wasn't small. That was skill that comes from years of dedication." He paused, thinking. "Why did you stop?" Her chest tightened. She didn't like talking about this. "Life changed," she said simply. "I had responsibilities. I didn't have time to practice. I had to work." "And your mother?" he asked gently. Lina hesitated. "She passed away many years ago." The teacher's expression softened. "I'm sorry." She nodded slightly, but said nothing more. He waited a moment before speaking again. "Lina, I teach here, but the truth is, most students don't really practice seriously. They come because their parents want them to. But your playing had emotion, control. You have something that can't be taught." Lina didn't respond. She didn't know how. "I want to ask you something," the teacher continued. "Would you consider helping with some of the music workshops here? Not teaching full-time, just guiding a few students. I think they could learn so much from you." Lina was surprised. "Me? Guide students? I haven't played in so long." "You played today," he said simply. And it was enough. Before Lina could answer, more children walked out of the hall, still talking about her performance. 2 girls ran past her, pretending to play imaginary pianos in the air. One of them said, "Did you see her hands? They were flying." The other giggled, copying the motion. Their laughter, playful and full of joy, made Lina smile without realizing it. The teacher noticed the smile. "They're inspired," he said. "You did that." Lina looked down at her hands. She had never thought of inspiring anyone. She had only played because she didn't want to let fear stop her again. "I don't know," she said softly. "I'm not sure if I'm the right person for something like that." The teacher studied her for a moment. Then he said quietly, "Think about it. You don't have to decide now." He walked back inside, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Lina sat on the bench. She watched the sky slowly change colors. She loved evenings like this, when everything felt calm and honest. She touched her fingers together, remembering the feeling of the piano keys beneath them. Her mother once told her, "When you play, you speak without words." She had forgotten that feeling for so many years. As she sat there, thinking about the teacher's offer, she heard footsteps again. This time, it was one of the teachers who had teased her earlier. The woman approached slowly, her face full of guilt. "Lina," she said quietly. Lina looked up. "I'm really sorry." The teacher's voice cracked. "We shouldn't have treated you that way. It was wrong." Lina didn't reply right away. The woman continued, "We thought it would be funny. We didn't know. We had no idea you could play like that. But even if you couldn't play, we shouldn't have put you on the spot." Lina nodded gently. "It's okay," she said softly. She didn't say it to make the woman feel better. She said it because she meant it. "I'm not upset." The teacher let out a breath of relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "And your performance was beautiful. Truly." The woman walked away, leaving Lina alone again. Lina leaned back against the bench, listening to the soft sounds from inside the hall as the event continued. She wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring. She wasn't sure if she was ready to step into music again. The thought scared her, but it also warmed her heart. The idea of helping students, sharing something she loved but had hidden for years. It felt strange, but also strangely right. Maybe she didn't need to make a big decision yet. Maybe she only needed to take one small step, and maybe playing today was that step. As the sky darkened, Lena stood up and walked slowly toward the bus stop. Her day had started like any other, but now she felt different, lighter, hopeful and a little unsure. But in a good way. She knew life wouldn't magically change overnight. She knew there would still be challenges. But something inside her had woken up, and she wasn't ready to let it fall asleep again. As she waited for the bus, she looked at her hands once more. They no longer felt like the hands of someone who had buried her dreams. They felt like the hands of someone who had just begun to remember who she truly was. Lena woke up the next morning, feeling different from any day she had experienced in years. She lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the strange mixture of warmth and nervousness inside her. It was like something soft and new had settled quietly in her chest, something she wasn't sure how to hold. She remembered the piano, the hall, the faces, the applause, the teacher, the children pretending to play music in the air. The way her fingers had moved again, as if they had been waiting all this time. She took a deep breath and sat up. Her small apartment was bright with early sunlight. It was simple, just a tidy room with a few pieces of furniture she had kept for years. She didn't have much, but she had always made the space feel peaceful. As she prepared for the day, she kept thinking about the teacher's words. Think about it. You don't have to decide now. Helping with music workshops? Guiding students? It sounded like something meant for someone else, someone with confidence, someone who had never walked away from her dreams. But a small part of her wondered, what if she could do it? She shook her head, trying not to get lost in thoughts. She put on her shoes, grabbed her bag, and left for the community center where she worked. When she arrived, she expected the usual routine: sweeping, organizing, helping with cleaning, and staying mostly invisible. But the moment she entered, she noticed something unusual. People were looking at her. Not in a rude way. Not in the way they sometimes looked through her. This time, they looked at her with recognition. A group of staff members stood near the reception desk, whispering among themselves. The moment they saw her, they stopped talking. One of them smiled, another waved. Someone even clapped softly. "Lena!" A woman called out happily. "We heard about your performance yesterday." Lena froze. "You heard?" "Heard?" The woman laughed. "Everyone's talking about it. Some parents came in this morning and said they'd never seen anything like it. Even the children are still buzzing with excitement." Lena felt her face warm. "I just played a little. It wasn't anything big." The woman shook her head. "Don't be modest. People are calling it the best moment of the event." Before Lena could answer, 2 young boys ran past her, pretending to play invisible pianos. One of them stopped in front of her and said proudly, "Miss, I'm going to learn to play fast like you." She smiled. "You can, if you practice every day." The boy nodded seriously, then ran off again. Lena continued walking down the hallway, still unsure how to feel. She wasn't used to being noticed, praised, or admired. She had spent most of her life blending into the background. It felt strange, almost unreal. As she entered the storage room to begin her work, she heard soft footsteps behind her. When she turned around, the piano teacher stood in the doorway. He looked less stern today. There was something calmer in his expression. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," Lena replied, her hands tightening around the mop handle she was holding. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said. Stepping inside, "No, it's okay," Lena said softly. He glanced around the room before speaking again. I wanted to talk to you about yesterday. Lena shifted her weight. I'm sorry if I caused any trouble. I didn't mean to take attention away from the students. You didn't cause trouble, he said quickly. If anything, you added something unforgettable to the event. Lena looked down. I just played what I remembered. The teacher studied her. Lena, if you haven't practiced in years, and you played like that, I can't imagine what you are like when you are practicing regularly. She didn't know what to say. He continued softly, there is something I want to ask again. I mentioned it yesterday, but I want to say it properly this time. Lena stayed silent, waiting. We are having a small workshop next week, the teacher said. It's for students who really want to learn, not because their parents told them to. It's a group of children who love music. I think they would benefit so much from someone like you. Lena swallowed. I don't know if I'm good enough to teach anyone. The teacher shook his head. You're not teaching them theory or technique. You're giving them something much more important. Heart, feeling, inspiration. They already asked about you this morning. Her eyes widened. They did? Yes, he said. They want to meet the woman who played yesterday. Lena felt something warm in her chest. It wasn't pride. It was something softer, something that made her feel connected to the world again. I need time to think, she said quietly. Of course, the teacher replied. Take as long as you need. I just wanted you to know the offer still stands. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. Lena? Yes? Don't hide your gift again. With that, he walked out. Lena stood in the room for a long moment, breathing deeply. She felt overwhelmed by the praise, the attention, the invitation. She wasn't used to people wanting her for anything beyond basic help. She began cleaning slowly, letting her thoughts settle all morning. People approached her. Some thanked her. Some asked questions. Some simply stared at her like she was a new person they had never seen before. It made her uncomfortable, but also strangely encouraged after her lunch break. She stepped outside to sit near the garden area behind the center. It was quiet there, only the sound of birds and distant cars. She sat on a wooden bench and closed her eyes. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind again. Music is your second heartbeat. Lena touched her chest lightly. The heartbeat felt stronger today. As she sat quietly, she heard someone approaching. It was the same woman teacher who had teased her the day before. The woman looked nervous, holding a small cup of tea in her hand. Lena, she said softly. Lena looked up. Hello. The teacher sat beside her, though she left a respectful space between them. I brought you some tea. I wasn't sure if you'd like it. Thank you, Lena said, accepting it gently. The woman looked down, twisting her fingers. I know I apologized yesterday, but I want to say it again. I feel terrible for how we treated you. We didn't know your story. We didn't know you had such a beautiful talent. Lena shook her head. It's okay. You didn't know. But I should have known better, the woman said. No one should be pushed into something to be laughed at. We were wrong. Lena smiled softly. It's in the past now. The woman sighed in relief. Thank you for being so kind. Not everyone would forgive so easily. They sat quietly for a moment. Then the woman said, You changed the atmosphere yesterday. Everyone left talking about hope, not just talent. I think you have something very special. Lena didn't know how to respond, so she simply sipped her tea. Later in the afternoon, the children from the after-school program arrived. They always came running through the hallways, filling the center with laughter and playful chaos. But today, the moment they saw Lena, they stopped and stared. One girl walked up to her with bright, excited eyes. Miss Lena, can you play for us again someday? Lena knelt to be at eye level with her. Maybe, she said with a gentle smile. Another child jumped forward. I want to learn the song you played? Lena laughed softly. I don't know if I remember it perfectly, but I can try. The children cheered and ran off, imagining music in their heads. As she watched them, she felt something shift inside her. A tiny courage, a tiny hope. Maybe she could help them. Maybe she could reconnect with the part of herself she had lost. When her shift ended, Lena decided to walk home instead of taking the bus. The sky was warm orange, and the street held the calm rhythm of late afternoon. As she walked, she noticed little things she usually overlooked: the rustling of leaves, the laughter of neighbors chatting, the distant sound of someone practicing guitar in an apartment nearby. Every sound felt different now. Maybe because she was finally listening at home. She sat on her small bed, took a deep breath, and closed her eyes. Images of her mother came back to her gentle smile, her patient voice, the way she guided Lena's hands on the piano. She whispered to herself, "Would you be proud of me?" The silence answered her in a warm way. She didn't make a final decision that night. She didn't need to rush. But she did something she hadn't done in years. She placed her fingers on the edge of her table. Pretending it was a piano. She tapped a melody. Slowly. Softly. Remembering. For the first time in a long time. She didn't feel like someone who had lost her dream. She felt like someone who might be ready to find it again. The next morning arrived quietly, but there was a different kind of energy in the air. It was the kind of feeling that comes when something important is about to happen, even if no one can explain why. The woman woke up earlier than usual, and for a moment she simply lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the day would unfold. She did not know what she would face, but she felt something pushing her forward, something inside her that she had ignored for years. She got ready slowly, trying not to overthink things. She had spent the whole night replaying the music she had played at the school, thinking about the expression on the teachers' faces. She could still hear the sound of the hall bursting with noise after she finished. Some people had cheered, some had whispered, and others simply stared, not knowing what to say. It was all new to her, and she was not sure how to feel about it. When she walked downstairs, her mother looked at her with a soft smile, the kind of smile that carried both pride and worry. Her mother had always supported her, even when the world laughed at her. She placed a warm cup of tea on the table and said nothing at first, waiting for the woman to sit. After a moment, her mother finally spoke. "You didn't sleep, did you?" she asked gently. The woman shook her head. "Not much. My mind was full." "I thought so," her mother said with a small sigh. "But I want you to know that whatever happens today, you did nothing wrong. You only showed who you are." The woman looked down at the cup in her hands. "What if they think I made a scene? What if they punish me for playing too well? You know how they are." Her mother reached over and placed her hand on her daughter's. "You played with heart. No one can punish someone for having a gift. And if they try, it only shows how afraid they are of real talent." Those words gave her a little strength, but a part of her still felt unsure. She finished her tea quietly and left the house to return to the school where everything had happened. As she walked through the gates, she noticed people staring at her. Some whispered. Others nodded politely. A few even smiled as if they now saw her differently. It felt strange. She had always been invisible. Now suddenly she was not. When she entered the building, one of the office assistants rushed toward her. "The head of the department wants to see you," she said quickly. The woman paused, unsure if this was good or bad. "Now?" "Yes, right away." The assistant looked nervous, which made the woman even more anxious. She followed the assistant down the hall, her heart beating loud enough that she felt she could hear it. When they reached the office, the assistant knocked softly before opening the door. Inside, a group of teachers sat around a long table. Some she recognized from yesterday. Some had been the ones who laughed when she was told to play. And at the head of the table sat the piano teacher, the one who looked shocked the moment she started playing. When the woman stepped inside, the room fell silent. "Please sit," the head of the department said. Gesturing to the chair in the center, she sat down slowly, unsure whether she was stepping into praise or trouble. For a long moment, no one spoke. The teachers exchanged looks. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked annoyed. Only the piano teacher kept staring at her hands, as if trying to figure out how he had missed something so important. Finally, the head of the department cleared his throat. "We all witnessed what happened yesterday, and we must say it was unexpected." The woman felt her stomach tighten. "Unexpected," he continued, "not because you played, but because you played with such skill." A few teachers nodded slowly. "We must be honest," one of them said awkwardly. "When we suggested you play, it was meant as a little joke. Something harmless. We assumed you would hesitate, or refuse, or play something simple." The woman stared at the floor. She had known they meant it as a joke, but hearing them admit it made her chest feel heavy. "But what you did," another teacher added, "was something far beyond anything we imagined. Your performance. It was extraordinary." She looked up slightly, unsure whether she should respond. The piano teacher finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Where did you learn to play like that?" he asked. The room waited. The woman hesitated, wondering how much to reveal. "I used to practice on an old piano at home," she said softly. "I didn't go to any music school. I just played whenever I could. It was something that helped me feel calm." The piano teacher leaned back, clearly surprised. "No training? No mentor?" She shook her head. The teachers murmured among themselves, some in disbelief, others in discomfort. The head of the department raised his hand to quiet the room. "Regardless of how you learned, what you showed is real talent. And talent like that cannot go unnoticed." The woman lifted her eyes, now more confused. "What does that mean?" she asked. He clasped his hands together. "It means we want to give you an opportunity. Something that could change your life if you accept it." The room grew silent again, but this time it was not uncomfortable. It was suspenseful. "What opportunity?" she asked slowly. The head of the department exchanged a brief look with the piano teacher before responding. "There is an upcoming music program at the state level. A showcase where talents from schools all over the city come to perform. It is not easy to get in. Only the best students are invited. But after what we saw, we think you should participate." The woman blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. "Me? But I am not even a student. I just help around the school." "Talent is talent," the piano teacher said. "And your performance was stronger than anything my trained students have ever shown." The woman felt her heart swell with a mix of emotions: fear, excitement, confusion, hope. But one teacher added carefully, "Participation will require preparation, training, guidance, and discipline. It will not be easy." The woman looked at her hands resting on her lap. She had always loved the piano, but she had never imagined something like this could happen. She never thought anyone would take her music seriously. "We want you to represent us," the head of the department said. "But the choice is yours." The woman sat silent for a long moment. She thought about the years she spent hiding her talent because she thought no one would understand. She thought about the laughter she always heard behind her back. She thought about how everyone treated her as someone who didn't matter. And she thought about the feeling she had when she played yesterday, the feeling of losing herself in the music, the feeling of becoming someone different, someone who belonged. Finally, she looked up. I don't know if I can do it. I've never performed anywhere. I don't know if I'm ready." The piano teacher stood up, his expression serious. Let me be clear. You may not feel ready, but you are capable. I have trained students for years. I know talent when I see it, and what you have is something rare. If you allow me, I will train you myself." The room fell quiet again. The woman felt her breath catch. The same man who laughed yesterday was now offering to help her. It felt unreal. "Take your time to think," the head of the department said. "You do not need to answer today." She nodded slowly. "I will think about it." The meeting ended soon after, and the woman stepped out into the hallway feeling overwhelmed. Everything felt too big, too fast. She needed space to breathe. She walked outside and found a quiet corner near the garden. She sat down on a bench, staring at the ground, letting her thoughts settle. Minutes passed. Maybe even an hour. She wasn't sure. Then she heard a soft voice behind her. "Are you okay?" She turned and saw one of the younger teachers standing there. She recognized her from yesterday. She had not laughed like the others did. She had looked surprised, then respectful. "I'm fine," the woman said softly. "I know it's a lot," the teacher continued, sitting beside her. "But I want you to know something. Not everyone here doubted you. Some of us just didn't know who you really were. Yesterday opened our eyes." The woman didn't respond, but she listened. "Opportunities like this don't come often," the teacher said. "And you deserve to shine. Don't let fear stop you." The woman looked at the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun. She thought again about what the head of the department said, and about the piano teacher offering his help. She thought about how different her life could become if she said yes. For the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she was meant for something bigger. As she walked back home later that day, she replayed everything in her mind. Her mother waited at the door, worried but hopeful. "How did it go?" her mother asked. The woman took a deep breath. "They want me to perform at a big event. They want me to represent the school." Her mother gasped softly, covering her mouth. "You? Perform?" "Yes," the woman said quietly. "But I don't know if I can. They said it will be hard." Her mother took her hand with both of hers. Life always asks for courage before it gives blessings. If this is your calling, you must follow it. The woman lowered her eyes, feeling her heartbeat in her chest. "I just don't want to disappoint anyone." "You could never disappoint me," her mother said firmly. "And as for the others, let your music speak." That night, the woman lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. But this time, her thoughts were different. She imagined standing on a stage, playing in front of people she had never met. She imagined the sound of the piano echoing through a big hall. She imagined the feeling of showing the world who she truly was. And slowly, her fear began to fade. She knew what she had to do. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "I will try." It was a small sentence. The next day began with a quiet but steady determination inside the woman. She woke up earlier than she had in a long time, not because someone called her, but because something inside her would not let her rest. The offer she received yesterday kept circling in her mind like a soft melody she could not ignore. Even though she still felt unsure, the thought of playing on a real stage brought a strange kind of excitement. Her mother noticed her energy the moment she walked into the kitchen. "You're up early," her mother said gently. "I couldn't sleep much," the woman replied, though there was no tiredness in her voice. Her mother studied her for a moment, then nodded with understanding. "You've already made your choice, haven't you?" The woman looked down at her hands and took a deep breath. "Yes, I think I have." Her mother smiled, a smile filled with pride that warmed the entire room. "Then go and tell them. Don't let fear speak louder than your gift." Those words helped settle something inside her. She finished her tea, tied her hair back, and left the house with a steady step. The morning sun washed over the street as she walked, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hope walking beside her. When she reached the school, the campus buzzed quietly. Students moved around, teachers talked among themselves, and everyone seemed busy with their own lives. But as she walked past them, she noticed the small glances, the little whispers. She was no longer invisible. The piano teacher was already inside the music room when she arrived. He sat with a notebook open, flipping through sheets of music, completely focused. He looked up the moment he heard the door open. "You came early," he said with mild surprise. "I needed to talk to you," she replied softly. He gestured for her to sit. "Then talk." She took a breath, her hands resting on her lap. "I thought about what you said, about the event, about training, and I want to do it. I want to try." For a moment, the teacher simply stared at her, as if trying to confirm that he heard her correctly. Then a slow smile appeared on his face, the kind that revealed genuine satisfaction. "Good," he said. "Very good. Then we start today." She blinked, startled. "Today? If you want to stand on that stage, you don't have time to waste. Talent alone is not enough. Discipline must follow. So we begin now." He stood up, walked to the piano, and opened the lid. "Come." She walked toward the piano with a mix of excitement and fear. She sat on the bench, feeling the smooth wood beneath her. For a moment, she closed her eyes and took a breath. This piano was different from the old one at home. The keys felt clean, soft, and ready for a story. The teacher stood beside her. "Before we start," he said, "there is something you need to understand. Your natural talent is remarkable, but natural talent can become even greater when shaped. I will push you hard. I won't be gentle. Not because I want to be harsh, but because you deserve to reach your full strength." She nodded, her heart pounding but steady. "I understand." "Good," he said. "Now show me the piece you played that day." She placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The melody flowed, soft at first, then stronger. She lost herself in the music, as she always did. The piano responded to her touch like it had been waiting for her. The teacher listened closely, his eyes sharp, following every movement of her hands. When she finished, the room fell quiet. "Beautiful," he said at last. "But you hold back. You don't realize how strong you can be. Today, we will work on control, not just emotion." And so the training began. The teacher guided her through exercises she had never done before. Finger drills, speed practice, control techniques, and breathing methods. He corrected her posture, her hand position, even the way she moved her shoulders. Hours passed. Though it felt like minutes. At one point, she paused, rubbing her fingers gently. "I didn't know playing could feel like work," she said with a small laugh. "Everything worth achieving asks for effort," the teacher replied. "And you have something worth showing to the world." As the days went by, her routine changed completely. She worked in the school during the day, but every free moment she ran to the music room. Some days she practiced for hours, her fingers sore, her arms tired, but her heart steady. The piano teacher pushed her every day, sometimes gently, sometimes sharply. "Again," he would say. "Start over. You're rushing. Slow your breathing. Feel the music, don't chase it. Let it come through you." And she listened. She tried. She improved. Other teachers began to notice. Some peeked through the door during her practice sessions, watching quietly. A few whispered to each other in surprise at how fast she was growing. Students sometimes gathered outside the room, trying to catch a glimpse of the mysterious woman everyone talked about. A few days later, the younger teacher who had spoken to her before came to check on her. She stood near the door, smiling softly as she watched the woman play. When the woman finally stopped to rest her hands, the young teacher stepped inside. "You're getting better so quickly," she said. The woman wiped her forehead with a small towel. "I'm trying my best. I've never worked like this before." "You're doing beautifully," the young teacher said kindly. "I hope you're proud of yourself." The woman smiled shyly, not knowing how to respond. "And don't forget," the young teacher added, "you're inspiring people more than you realize." Those words stayed with her long after the teacher left. As the performance day grew closer, the pressure increased. The piano teacher brought her new pieces to study, some more difficult than anything she had played before. She struggled with them, sometimes failing, sometimes losing patience, but the teacher never let her give up. "You are stronger than your doubts," he would say. "Don't let a moment of struggle decide your future." One afternoon, after a long session, a woman rested her head on the piano, breathing heavily. She felt exhausted, her fingers trembling slightly. The piano teacher sat beside her. His voice softened. "You're tired. Rest for a minute. But listen to me carefully." She lifted her head slowly. "What you're doing is not small. You are stepping into a world where people train for years. And yet you're holding your own. But remember, this talent grows best when the heart is in the right place. Don't play for applause. Don't play to prove something to those who laughed. Play because it is your truth." She nodded, understanding the depth of his words. That evening, when she walked home, the sky was painted with warm colors. She felt tired but proud. And when she opened the door, her mother hugged her right away. "You look exhausted," her mother said. "I'm learning things I never knew," the woman replied with a soft smile. "Good things require good effort," her mother said, echoing the piano teacher without knowing it. "I'm proud of you." The woman sat down at the table, enjoying the warm food her mother had prepared. She shared a little about her training, how difficult it was, but also how much she was learning. Her mother listened with shining eyes. Later that night, the woman sat beside the window, watching the lights outside. She thought about her journey from the day they told her to play as a joke to now, where she stood preparing for a stage she once thought she would never reach. She smiled to herself. She had come so far, and still, the biggest moment was ahead. The next morning, she walked back to the school with renewed focus. She knew she had little time left before the performance. The teacher greeted her with a nod and immediately began the lesson. Every day pushed her further than the day before. Her fingers became faster. Her control became stronger. Her confidence grew, little by little. One afternoon, after a long and intense session, the piano teacher stepped back and folded his arms. "Play the piece again," he said. She did. This time, something was different. Her hands moved smoothly, her breath steady, her focus sharp. The music flowed out of her effortlessly, like a river finally finding the right path. When she finished, the teacher did not speak for a moment. Then he nodded with deep approval. "Now," he said, "you are ready." Hearing those words made her eyes sting with emotion. She had worked so hard for this moment. The teacher closed the piano gently. "Tomorrow, we will focus on the final touches. After that, your performance awaits." The woman walked home with her heart light and full. She had never imagined that her life would change like this. From a simple helper at a school to someone preparing for a major music event, it felt unreal. That night, she fell asleep quickly, dreaming of a grand hall, a shining piano, and a moment where she would finally show the world the music that lived inside her. She was ready, or at least, she hoped she was. The morning of the performance arrived with a quiet stillness, the kind that feels both comforting and frightening at the same time. The woman woke up long before the sun appeared, long before birds sang, long before the world stretched into its daily rhythm. She sat up slowly, letting the reality settle in her chest like a gentle weight. Today was the day she had trained for, hoped for, feared, and dreamed about. She washed her face and looked at herself in the small mirror. Her eyes held something new: courage mixed with softness, strength mixed with a little fear. But more than anything, they held a kind of calm acceptance. She knew she had done everything she could. She had practiced, learned, struggled, and grown. Her mother entered the room quietly, holding a small cup of warm tea. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked softly. "Not much," the woman replied. Her mother nodded knowingly and handed her the cup. "Drink. Today will require strength, but you already have it. Just remember who you are." The woman took a sip, letting the warmth calm her nerves. Her mother sat beside her, gently brushing her hair with her fingers. "No matter what happens," she whispered, "I am proud of you. You walked into this with courage most people never find." The words filled the woman's heart like a soft, steady glow. After getting ready, she stepped outside. The morning air felt fresh and cool. As she walked through the quiet street toward the school, every step felt like a step toward a different life. She remembered the day they asked her to play as a joke, the way everyone laughed, the way she felt invisible and small. Now everything was different. She was different. When she reached the school, the piano teacher was already waiting near the entrance. He held a small bag in one hand and a clipboard in the other. His face was calm, but his eyes revealed a spark of excitement. "Good," he said when he saw her. "You're early." That's the sign of someone who takes their moments seriously. She offered a small, nervous smile. "I didn't want to be late." "You won't be," he said firmly. "Today is about you, and I want you to understand something very important before we leave." He stepped a little closer. "You have earned your place on that stage. No one gave you charity. No one gifted you luck. You worked for this. You built your own path. So walk into that hall as someone who belongs there." His words held a power she didn't expect. They steadied her, strengthened her. They boarded the transport bus with the rest of the participants. Students from many schools filled the seats, excitedly talking and laughing. Some eyed her curiously, whispering among themselves. They had heard stories about the unknown woman who played like she had been trained for years. She sat quietly beside the window, looking at the passing streets, trying to calm her mind. The piano teacher sat behind her, occasionally giving reminders. "Remember your breathing. Don't rush your thoughts. Let your mind stay clear. Trust yourself." The drive continued, and the large event hall soon came into view. It was far bigger than she imagined, tall, bright, and filled with banners announcing the competition. As she entered the building, she heard the early sounds of rehearsals. Violins warming up, singers testing their voices, pianists practicing short bursts of notes. Backstage was a world of movement: students adjusting clothes, teachers checking lists, assistants rushing back and forth. She felt small again for a moment, but then her teacher placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Stay with me," he said calmly. He guided her to a quiet corner away from the chaos. "This is your space to breathe," he said. "Don't let the noise enter your mind." She nodded, closing her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, the hall coordinator walked over with a clipboard. "Your performance is scheduled after the orchestra piece. Be ready in 20 minutes. Her heart began to race. The piano teacher narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. 20 minutes is good," he said. "Just enough time." He looked at the woman. "Sit," he said. She sat on a nearby bench as he knelt in front of her, speaking quietly. "Listen, when you walk onto that stage, take a moment to breathe. Put your hand on the piano before you sit. Feel it. Let it remind you of who you are. Then sit, close your eyes for 3 seconds, and begin. Don't think of the audience. Don't think of the teachers who laughed that day. Think of the music. Let it rise from inside you the way it always has. She nodded. I will try. No, he corrected gently. You will do it. A few minutes later, the hall filled completely. The audience took their seats, parents, teachers, judges, students, and guests. The bright lights set the stage in gold. The sound of applause followed the orchestra's performance, and then silence fell. A voice echoed through the hall. Next, we present a special performance. The woman felt her heart skip. A performer representing our district school. A performer with no formal training, yet a gift that has captured the attention of many. Her hands trembled. Please welcome. The announcer said her name, but the teacher touched her arm gently. Go. She stood. Her legs felt light, almost shaking, but she walked, step by step, toward the bright lights ahead. As she stepped onto the stage, the large hall stretched before her like a world she had never seen. The lights shone on her. Hundreds of faces watched. She remembered the teacher's words. She walked to the piano slowly, placed her hand on the polished wood, closed her eyes. Then she sat. The hall waited. She took a deep breath and lifted her hands. Her fingers touched the keys. And then the music began. The first notes were soft, gentle, like a whisper. The hall leaned in. The sound grew stronger, steadier, more confident. Her hands moved like they had always belonged there. Her heart poured into every chord, every shift, every pause. She forgot the audience. She forgot the judges. She forgot the hall. She only remembered the music inside her, the music she had hidden for so long, the music she thought no one would ever hear. It rose through the room like a warm wind. It filled every corner. It wrapped around every listener. People watched with wide eyes. Some teachers whispered, "How is this possible?" Students were stunned. Judges leaned forward, amazed. The piano teacher stood backstage, hands clasped tightly, eyes soft with pride. As the piece reached its strongest moment, the woman felt something shift inside her. A feeling she had never known, something close to freedom. Then came the final note. It rang through the hall like a final breath. Silence. A deep, powerful silence. Then the hall erupted. Applause came like a wave. Loud, rising, unending. People stood. Teachers who once laughed now clapped with astonished faces. Students shouted. Some even whistled in excitement. The woman remained seated, staring at the piano in disbelief. She could not understand what she had just done. She only felt the softness of her breath and the warmth of her heartbeat. The applause continued, filling her ears, filling her heart. Slowly she stood and bowed her head. The hall cheered louder. When she walked backstage. The piano teacher met her with eyes shining. You did it, he whispered. You truly did it. She shook her head slightly, still unable to process everything. I just played. You did more than play, he said firmly. You changed this hall. You changed the way people see you. And you changed the way you see yourself. The results were announced later. She didn't expect anything, but when the announcer said her name for the top recognition, the entire hall rose again. She stood there, receiving the award with trembling hands. She looked at the crowd and saw her mother in the audience, tears streaming down her face. Her mother lifted her hand proudly, and the woman smiled through her own tears. After the event, people surrounded her, judges, teachers, students, each congratulating her, each asking how she learned, where she trained, how she played so beautifully. She answered gently, I learned at home, on an old piano, and I played because it is the only thing that feels like breathing to me. The piano teacher stayed beside her, occasionally stepping in to shield her from the overwhelming attention. When they finally left the event hall, the sun was setting. The sky glowed in warm shades. She walked out holding the award close to her chest. The piano teacher walked beside her. "Your life will change after today," he said softly. "People will want to know your story. They will want to hear more from you. Are you ready for that?" She thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "If the music is inside me, I want people to hear it. I'm not afraid anymore." Her mother hugged her tightly. "You didn't just play the piano today. You opened a door for your future." As they walked home, the woman felt the cool evening breeze on her face. She thought about the journey, the laughter that once tried to belittle her, the fear that held her silent, the hidden talent she carried in her heart, and she realized something. The stage she once feared had become the place she belonged. She smiled softly to herself. Her life had changed, and this time she was ready to walk forward without hiding. The music inside her was no longer silent, but it had finally found its place in the world.